Hello and welcome to another video tutorial. This week I wanted to experiment with some embossing powders. I have these really bright ones by American Crafts. This is the Zing powders. And I'm going to be using grapefruit, cricket, and aqua. And I'm going to create this really cool embossed background. First we're going to do some masking. And you'll kind of see how it comes together. And I'm going to do color blocked embossing. Actually using the same different embossing powders on the same background. So I'm really excited to try this out. I gave it a little try with a piece of paper ahead of time, and this is how it came out. So I'm going to be using a different background and kind of altering the technique a little bit to work with this kind of card. So first I'm going to start out by just using this Eclipse masking tape. This is actually really hard to find right now for some reason. But you can use the inkadinkado masking tape, which I've heard is just as good, and it comes in sheets. I'll link to it on my blog. Or you can actually use post-it notes too. This just works really well because it'll seal in the edges really well. So I'm just going to use my craft mat here to make sure that my line is nice and straight. And then I'm going to square up this side. And now I'm just going to start making cuts, and I want my pieces to be about 1.5 inches wide. So for my purposes, that's exactly the width of my ruler, which is really awesome. And so I'm just going to start looking at where I want these pieces to come in, and then make my first line, line it up here, make my second line, and then you just do this all the way across. And maybe I actually want to make it a little bit more complex than this. So what I'm going to do is actually cut these in half. So we're going with 3/4 of an inch. So. Okay, now with you have your cardstock ready. I've cut these all down to 3/4 of an inch wide. And my card base is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my background stamp in Versamark on my background. So get my stamp all inked up. I just re-inked my Versamark ink pad with some more re-inker just to make sure that the Versamark is really there and is really going to make an impression on this card, because we will be covering up all of the Versamark. Now I'm just going to try really hard to get this straight. It doesn't have to be any particular part of the stamp, but it just needs to be square to the edges. And then put my piece of paper over the top and rub. We're going to put the masking tape over the top of it. And then just make the other ones match up. And you don't have to press down that hard yet. You can put everything down at the end a little bit harder. Alright, so I have that covered, and now I'm just going to go in really quickly with a pencil and write, let's see which one I want pink to be here, green, and then teal, pink. And that'll just make sure that I'm pulling the right ones at the right time. And I'm going to start with my darkest color, so I'm going to start with teal. Pull up the teal strips, and then I have these just pieces of extra printer paper. I have one for each color. You're not going to want to cross-contaminate here. And on the backs here, you want to make sure you trim this off. Otherwise, this is all going to pick up the stress, or the embossing powder. And I'm actually saving these strips up here because you can use them again later. So make sure your edges are pressed down so you're not getting extra embossing powder underneath the edges. And this will make sure that the edges are nice and crisp. Then we're just going to sprinkle some teal powder onto our card, just where the ink is exposed. Then just tap off the excess. And this will produce a more subtle effect. Obviously when you try it on something more like this, it's going to be more bold, but I wanted it to be kind of subtle. So that's why I chose a finer pattern. This would actually work better with a thicker line, I think. But we're going to keep going anyways and see how it turns out. So this, I folded it in half before I began just so that I could easily pour it back in. And then I will just do the same thing with the other two colors. And since we have all the excess powder off here, you can just keep going. It's not really going to contaminate the other colors to the point where we need to worry about it. And now that I have my piece covered, you can't really see it that well on camera, so I'll hold it up so you can see. It's pretty subtle, but I think it'll look really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and just heat it with my heat tool until the graininess has gone away and it's kind of melted and smooth. Okay, so I have this all embossed and it's super cute. I really like it a lot. And just to kind of get this effect again while I'm at it, I'm going to do the same thing with this stamp, the tartan background from Hero Arts and Basic Gray CG440. And this has bolder lines on it, so I think this should give us a more bold effect. So I'm going to try it and we can kind of compare the results. Okay, so I'm back with my tartan background and look how it turned out. Isn't that wonderful? I love it. I had to go back in with my embossing pen just to go over with a couple of the lines, especially with the pink since that was the last color. But you can really see the effect I was going for then. So I think I'm actually just going to make cards with the both of these, treat them similar ways, and then they'll look a little bit different in the end, but I think they'll still be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to use these sentiments from Hero Arts as well. They're called Untitled Love from their Art of the Card set, and I think I'm just going to use the Hello and the Love ones. And I'm going to use some versafine ink. And the really cool thing about versafine is it's really just, the detail that you can get with it is pretty incredible. But the thing that stinks about it is you can't color with it. So it's really great for times like this when you want really, really dark black and you just want the sentiment to shine. So it's great for sentiments. So I'm just going to ink this up really well and then go ahead and stamp down when I'm ready. You can see that really great impression. I don't think I would have been able to get that with Memento ink. So I'm going to stamp the Hello one as well. Now I just have to let it dry, but since it's a pigment ink, you can actually emboss with it. So I think I'm just going to dry it quickly by embossing it with clear embossing powder. So I'll grab my clear embossing powder, and this I actually have in a Tupperware container because it makes it way easier to use. I just don't use the colored ones enough to justify having it in a container. Now while it's still hot, I'm going to go ahead and add a second coat. And this is just kind of a fun thing to do to add more shine. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut these out with some plain scissors. So to complement the black in my stamped images, you know, sentiments, I'm actually going to color some gemstones black. So I want to show you how I usually do this. Since I do it a lot but don't show it on camera, I just went ahead with my X-Acto knife and cut all of these crystals apart. So I made two cuts, one near this one and one near this one, and then kind of scoop the adhesive out and set it up here. So you don't color the adhesive between the stones that way, and then they're easier to place separately. And now I'm just going to color over them. This is just a black marker. Just going to liberally just kind of smush it over it. And any of them that look like they're not getting good coverage, you can just go back and add a dab of the Copic marker, or any alcohol-based marker that you have really will work for this. And then just let these dry for a few minutes. I usually let them sit for, 5 minutes, but they're pretty dry to the touch within a minute or so. I just don't want to get them all over my card, so I'm going to let them dry for a couple minutes and then I'll be back and assemble my card. And now I'm ready to assemble. So I'm going to go ahead and add some this to my card, my background to my card with some foam adhesive. You can see I've already added some on the back here. And I'm going to use the bird on this one because of the simple shape. The butterfly almost seems like it's just too much going on with this background. It'll be much better on the other one. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add my gems on. I'm just going to add these to all 4 of the corners and then halfway in between each corner. So now I have my first finished card. Isn't it cute? I love it. And this simple design works really great when you're doing something really complex like this background. And just using a lot of foam adhesive really helps to add that dimension and the drama that we really like. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the other card together. Alright, so I have my 2 finished cards here. And this is a really fun way of doing the same thing twice, but just switching up little things like the background stamp that you're using, or the fact that these are the exact same size, so you can create the same format of card. It creates a completely different look. This one by itself is more understated and simple and kind of cute, and this one is like really loud and happy and bright. And together they make a really cute set. So I hope you enjoy this video in this kind of interesting way of using embossing powders, and give it a try today. And just so you know, you can go way simpler with it. On my first example, which I have here, I just put 2 post-it notes, one here and one here, did the blue, and then took the post-it notes off and did the green. So you can start out really basic or get really kind of crazy like I did here. Either way, it's kind of fun, and try something with new bright embossing powders, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you again next week on another video tutorial.